Yo, Malcom Jamal Warner did not drown. At least according to Eddie Griffin, who allegedly has just risked everything by saying out loud what insiders have been whispering about for days now. Looks like Eddie is claiming that the official story is a cover-up and that the autopsy results were tampered with, and what really happened to Malcom was so dark they had to silence it before the media got wind of it. And now the way that Eddie's talking, it's almost like he knows who's behind it and looks like he's daring them to come stop him. But why was the cause of death sealed off so fast? And who had something to gain from Malcom's silence? And how does Eddie know so much if he wasn't even there? Well, once you hear what he had to say and who else might be involved, you start to wonder if Malcom's death was an accident at all, or the final chapter in something bigger. Y'all, looks like Eddie Griffin is done staying quiet about his friend Malcom Jamal Warner. From the way that things are moving, it's looking like someone tried to shut him up for good. After news broke about Malcom Jamal Warner's death, Eddie posted a heartbreaking tribute. He called Malcom a poet, a warrior, a brother who went to battle against the Hollywood machine. But now Eddie's revealing some truths, and what he's revealing is disturbing, because allegedly there's been a massive cover-up that the first autopsy didn't show drowning at all. And if that's true, then what really happened to Malcom? Who's rewriting this narrative behind the scenes, and why is Eddie risking it all to allegedly expose the truth now? Y'all, allegedly, when the first autopsy was done, there was no water in Malcom's lungs. And that's a huge red flag, because when someone drowns, the lungs always fill up with fluid. And that's how doctors know that a person was alive when they went under. But in Malcom's case, nothing. No water, no fluid, which raises the question, was he already gone before he even hit the water? And if that's true, then somebody's got to be lying. And the fact that they're still calling it a drowning doesn't just sound off, it sounds like a full-on cover-up. But according to eyewitnesses who were actually at the scene, it didn't even look like Malcom was under long enough to drown, even if he was alive before he hit the water. But here's where it gets even sketchier. Those same eyewitnesses who were reportedly prevented from speaking to the media for the first 48 hours after his death, no interviews, no statements, nothing. And anytime there's a gag order like that, especially right after someone dies under suspicious circumstances, yeah, something's definitely being hidden. Now, at the time, reports claimed that bystanders jumped in to help with they saw Malcom struggling, but by the time Costa Rica's Red Cross arrived, it was already too late. He was pulled out unresponsive, and not long after, he was officially declared dead. But here's the thing, the timeline's not adding up. One of the bystanders, who says he's a doctor, claimed he was only about 200 meters away when it all went down. The moment he noticed that something was wrong, he rushed to help Malcom. He said, "I ran to the area and entered the sea with my surfboard, heading into the rip current toward the person being pointed at by some beachgoers. I saw a shadow, dove down and pulled the person out." Another major red flag is the timeline. Nothing about it adds up. The reports are all over the place, and some say that Malcom was in the water for minutes, others claim it was way longer, and some mention one person trying to save him. Others say there were multiple, and no one seems to agree on exactly when emergency responders arrived. It's all seeming very vague, inconsistent, and very convenient. And exactly what's been fueling this fire online? Well, because it just really wasn't a simple accident. Because if this was just a simple accident, why is the timeline so messy? Now, everybody knows that a drowning can happen really fast, and it's usually pretty quiet when it happens, but Eddie Griffin doesn't seem to be buying it. Allegedly, he's standing firm on his belief that Malcom was already gone before he even touched the water, and that somebody must have pushed him in to cover up what really happened, allegedly. See, apparently, it would have taken a doctor less than a minute to reach Malcom. So how is it that in just a few seconds, Malcom was already unresponsive? It's not adding up. But let's not forget, Malcom was a strong swimmer. He knew better than to go diving into dangerous tides, which only makes this whole situation look even more suspicious. And when you add in that this is a suspicious autopsy about how there were no fluids in Malcom's lungs, the rumors about his daughter being there, Eddie's claims start to make even more sense. But what really has Eddie raising eyebrows is how quiet everything's been. Almost too quiet. Clay's Beach isn't some remote hidden getaway. It's a busy public spot, full of tourists and locals every single day. So how is it that not one video or photo from the scene has surfaced? Not even a blurry clip? That's strange enough. But what's even weirder is that the few witnesses who have spoken out sound like they were reading from a script, because their stories feel off, like they were coached on exactly what to say. So yeah, we get it, filming someone in their final moments is creepy, and a perfect world people would show respect, but let's be real. When has the internet ever played by these rules, especially when a celebrity's involved? Whether it's shock, clout chasing, or plain old curiosity, someone usually pulls out a phone. So nobody did that here? But allegedly what really locked in these suspicions was that this wasn't just some tragic accident. It was the fact that no lifeguards were on duty the day Malcom died. And get this, the Caribbean Coast Guard later said it was due to resource issues, but the same department had already flagged the beach as high risk for years and reportedly assigned extra lifeguards to that very spot. So why wasn't anybody patrolling it that day? Then suddenly, right after the news broke, they rushed out with a statement saying they're now redirecting resources back to the beach, along with another known for rough waters. So come on now, the timing, the backpedaling, the flimsy explanations, y'all, it screams cover up. And it's looking like Eddie might be the only one who sees it. But what really sent people spiraling even more was the timing. Just 2 days before his death, Malcom dropped what would end up being his final podcast episode, titled Not All Hood. And in that snippet that I'm about to show you, he opened up about survival, black identity, and the constant fight to rise above the stereotypes. But there was one line in particular that's now haunting everyone who heard it. Black survival in itself is black excellence. That line hit different after the news broke, and for a lot of folks, including Eddie, it didn't feel like a coincidence.
Because black excellence now is attributed to fame and money.
Never.
So that's been my issue.
Never for me.
With it. But now when I'm looking into the story, like black survival in and of itself is black excellence.
Because we've always had to supersede, do better, and more things have been put in our way to cross over.
But here's where things got even deeper. Malcom was a proud black man who was unapologetically vocal about race, power, and how black men are portrayed in America. And in the final podcast episode I'm playing, you can feel the weight of everything he's been carrying. Another clip resurfaces where he's breaking down how the media strips black men of their humanity and how they're boxed in, labeled, and pushed to the edge just for existing. And when you line that up with the timing of his death, it's not hard to connect dots. It looks like Eddie Griffin is connecting them dots for sure.
The black community is not a monolith. There's so many levels and lanes to the black community, and we wanted to have a space where we could acknowledge, discuss all of those lanes, because they're so varied in terms of our perspectives and our opinions and our ways of life, and we wanted to be able to have a place where we can talk about all of those things, discuss all of those things, and shed light on the not all hood aspects of who we are.
But what allegedly has Eddie on the edge is the timing of Malcom's podcast. It dropped just 48 hours before his death. And it looks like, that can't be a coincidence, right? Allegedly, he's convinced Malcom was trying to send a warning. And now, according to someone very close to him, Eddie's been carrying serious guilt for not catching the signs in time, for stepping in and helping when it mattered. And if that's the case, it leaves us with one chilling question. Was Malcom's silence for speaking too loudly? What makes all of this even more disturbing is that Eddie isn't treating Malcom's case like some isolated tragedy. He's connecting it to a much bigger pattern. One that seems to follow powerful black men who refuse to play by Hollywood's rules. Now, Eddie also claimed that there was a long history of outspoken black voices being torn down the moment they pushed back. He brought up how the media and industry elites have a way of demonizing black men once they stop being controllable. He pointed to Nipsey Hussle, who was down while promoting black ownership. He mentioned Martin Lawrence, who was thrown into a psych ward after he started fighting the system, and Dave Chappelle, who walked away from a multi-million-dollar deal and got dragged for it because he refused to sell out. So now Eddie's asking the question nobody wants to ask out loud. Was Malcom's death part of that same system silencing another voice that got too loud? But now it's starting to look like Eddie might be putting a target on his own back, because if there's one thing we know, is that powers running Hollywood don't play when it comes to getting exposed. They don't like questions, and they definitely don't like anyone challenging their grip. And now that Eddie's claiming that he has a copy of the autopsy that proves Malcom didn't die in the water, he's not stirring the pot, he's kicking it over. And if this is true, he's not just risking backlash, he could be risking way more than that. So if Malcom Jamal Warner didn't drown, then what really happened? Looks like Eddie's not backing down, and these timelines aren't adding up. And so now there's an alleged autopsy that blows the whole accidental death story wide open. The silence from the key witnesses, the missing footage, the final podcast, the history of black voices being silenced when they speak out. This just doesn't smell like a cover-up. It reeks. And if Eddie's right, then someone out there is working overtime to keep the truth buried. So was Malcolm's death just a tragic accident, or was it a warning?